challenges in West Africa, as well as finding innovative ways to ensure food resilience in the region. ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, EBID, transforming ECOWAS communities.
Africa, it is an absolute honor to be sitting here one more time. We came right here to this table a year ago. We promised you talk that would migrate to action, and we are back. And when I say we, I mean we are talking about unlocking food security in West Africa through agricultural transformation. So let's take it right back. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You're welcome to the 2025 President's Roundtable, proudly hosted by the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, one we call EBID. Now today we're gathering, as I said before, to talk about unlocking food security in West Africa through agricultural transformation. Now we can talk about food insecurity, and essentially it might feel like, well, Anita, is this a conversation that households should have? And I would say absolutely. Because whether you want to accept it or not, nearly 50 million lives across our sub-region, West Africa, are affected by food insecurity. I could leave you with staggering data, and I could leave you feeling like, listen, the glass is half empty. But today, courtesy EBID, we're talking about being armed with innovation, partnerships, and of course, the resilience of our people. So we're going to leave you with a glass half full. And of course, we are gathered here by esteemed individuals who will not only speak so that it sparks transformative action, but who will also show you that there are leaders who are invested in food security and agricultural progress on the continent, specifically in West Africa. My name is Anita Erskine, and it's such an honor to be able to moderate this critical conversation, bringing together experts and change makers who are driving solutions and, of course, who are making sure that the continent is not only speaking about progress, but that it is feeling prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start off by introducing my esteemed guest, starting off with the man whose shoulders are broad enough to carry this mandate and who has done it with expertise and professionalism that indeed is inspirational. Please allow me to welcome officially to the table Dr. George Ajikum Nana Donkor, President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of EBID. Dr. Donkor, you are warmly welcome. Thank you. Now, next to Dr. Donkor, Mrs. Lakshmi Mula, Country Director, International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD Ghana. And Ms. Mula, you had said something, when we were doing the sound check, and you said something about agriculture or something about the farmers. What did you say? You are hoping today will be?
All about smallholders.
All about smallholders, the people who put food on our table. Love
Absolutely.
it. Now allow me to go to Ms. Aurora Rusiga, Representative and Country Director, World Food Program, WFP Ghana. You are very welcome. Shall I share our little secret with the rest of the world?
Why not?
This is your first time being on live television and on the President's Roundtable.
Honored.
We have to celebrate.
That's a celebration.
Ms. Rusiga, it is absolutely wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
Last, definitely not the least, Dr. Victor Atukwe Clote, Regional Director, West Africa, CAP International. Dr. Clote, when you think of food security, one word you think of is?
Abundance.
Abundance. I love it. With that said, the person who does believe in abundance and the reason why we're here will start off with opening remarks. Dr. George Ajikum Nana Donkor, please do us the honors and give us the opening remarks to start off this crucial President's Roundtable. Over to you.
Yeah, good morning, distinguished viewers. Our partners from International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, World Food Program, and the CAB International. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking all of you for making time to be with us this morning. And I also like to express my profound sense of gratitude and, of course, that of the bank to the management of Metro Television, which makes facilities available every year. We very much appreciate that. Thank you, Anita, for accepting to moderate this very, very important discussion. So, unlocking food security in West Africa through transformation, agricultural transformation. That is the topic we are going to discuss today. And let me welcome you once again to this very, very important topic, where we are going to discuss this very crucial, issue which affects humanity. You agree with me that food security is key to a human survival. Indeed, it's a reflection of human dignity, and it behoves every decent society to take food security seriously, because that is the very essence of our, survival as human beings. Now, if we look at the data, it's very surprising that in West Africa, we actually have some of the, we have some of the best arable lands, holding about around 60% of the global, the global fertile and uncultivated land. And yet, in terms of yield, it's very, very minimal. We actually have the lowest average, the lowest average yield, which means that it's a problem. The reason is that we have not paid much attention to food security over the years, and I think it is high time we took note of that. Now, in all, as Anita, as you rightly indicated, we have about over 50 million people in West Africa who are food insecure. It's very, very, very alarming, statistics. And yet, we can boast of arable lands, as I indicated. And so, this issue of food security is not only just an issue for West Africa, it's a global, concern, which must actually engage the attention of all stakeholders and all human beings. And so, you come to realize that there are many causes of food insecurity in Africa, globally. Some of this is weather conditions, insecurity, inadequate financing. We are also looking at other factors such as economies that are not doing well. So food security actually destabilizes economies. It undermines the case of development progress, and it also creates a lot of chaos in our society. So there are many ways that we can actually look at and then resolve some of this problem. And I believe that at this forum, at this event, we are going to actually discuss some of the actionable solutions to resolving food security in our region and of course globally, in order to have a better perspective, as human beings. And so I would like to once again thank all of you for making time to be with us. And I hope that these discussions will engender actionable solution, positive outcomes that will inure to the benefit not only of West Africa but globally. So on this note, I would like to welcome all of you very warmly to this discussion and wish all of us very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Dr. Donkor, thank you so much. And as you're speaking, I got a message from someone who asking, it sounds exciting, but what is EBID? Never heard of it. Well, there's always a very first time. So if this is the first time you're hearing about EBID, it is the Regional Development Financial Institution owned by ECOWAS. And your responsibility is to make sure that you're taking care of these 15 countries. But you said something so poignant, Dr. Donkor. Think of, the abundance. Think of the lands. If I may ask, what proportion of EBID's investments over the past 5 years have gone into food security specific projects? And how do these perhaps align with SDG 2 and SDG 13?
Thank you, Anita. So let me start by sharing my vision for food security for West Africa as the president of this regional bank. In the first place, my vision is to ensure that every human being has access to basic food needs. When I say access, what I mean is that food should be really available and affordable. As I said initially in my introductory remarks, food is necessity. Every human being needs food to survive. And as I also said, it's a reflection of human dignity. Therefore, my vision is that every human being should have access to basic food, and of course, in terms of availability of food and then affordability. These are the two issues. Now, talking about EBID, ECOWAS Bank, as you may be aware, the ECOWAS Bank is the regional bank owned by the 15 ECOWAS member countries. And then the bank is actually committed to financing development projects and programs across all the priority sectors of the economies of West Africa. food security is one of the key pillars that we have invested over the years. For the past 5 years in our strategic plan, we have invested over $500 million in food security. When in these areas, we are talking about we are also concerned about agriculture, digital agriculture. We are also talking about smart agriculture, digital tools, and infrastructure development. What the reason is that we think that if these things are developed, it will make it easier for us to have abundance of food. And therefore, we have really invested in this area by making fertilizers available to our farmers all over the 15 countries, by also financing infrastructure, what we call irrigation infrastructure. If you go to Mali, if you go to Cote d'Ivoire, and even Ghana here, we have done a lot in terms of improving agriculture, infrastructure. The idea is that you agree with me that storage is key. If the farmers don't have storage, it means that they will produce and it will go waste. In fact, statistics show that if you look at the 2024 Food Waste Index report, it pegs waste at its food waste at about $1 trillion annually, which means that food waste is one of the causes of food insecurity which must be addressed. So what we do is that we try to provide all this infrastructure so that our farmers will have storage, abundant storage. Not only that, but irrigation system is very important. If you look at statistics, you realize that in West Africa, our irrigation is only about 5%, and that is not good enough for us to have abundance of food. And therefore, the bank decides to invest in these areas to make infrastructure, available for our farmers, so that they'll be able to store some of these produce that they have from their farms. And so, in EBID, we pay attention to that. As I said, annually we finance fertilizers. We also finance irrigation, infrastructure. We provide other inputs. In fact, some of them vegetable, even processing inputs. We do all those things for farmers to enable them to actually have to have enough, infrastructure to be able to actually improve upon food production. And so that's what we have done over the years.
Dr. Donkor, what I get from that is you can't leave anything to chance. You've got to be intentional about your strategy if you want to be able to achieve the level of food security that is deserving of the people, not only on the continent, but like you said, eventually, globally. Thank you so much for establishing who we are, and where we have to go. We're live on Metro TV. Also, you are listening to us live on Metro Radio Channel 94.1. And of course, you're watching us across the continent on DSTV 277. And if you're just joining us, this is the EBID President's Roundtable, where we're talking about unlocking food security in West Africa through agricultural transformation. So I bring it to you, Dr. Clottey. Dr. Donkor has shared the data, which you can look at it with an eye of fear. But I want us to be constructive. How can regional institutions strengthen the capacities of state and private actors to support the fight against food insecurity in West Africa? Dr. Clottey.
Thank you. Let's look at it in some three ways. First, the sources of this insecurity. Then, we can also look at the areas that we should intervene. Then the word capacity that you mentioned, which areas should we put this capacity? For the sources of insecurity, the two major places are the inefficiencies we see. And the second is wastage. Inefficiencies stem out from the ways we do our things. We've got pests taking part of our crops. We've also got issues around drought or too much water, the opposites, the extremes. Then we have issues with drudgery in what we do. All these lead to the inefficiencies. So either you don't meet the optimum that you are to get, or what you get, the next inefficiency is the wastage. We waste on labor, we waste on the inputs that we put in. So all these are areas, if we put some attention on, we can be correcting some of these things. I want to move also to these areas of interventions. Usually when we talk food security, most of our programs are just looking at the production end. But before you produce, you need the inputs. What quality are they of? How accessible are they? Are they affordable? These are all what marks on which contributes to the inefficiencies that we are talking about. So when the recommendation in where you are says use this amount of seed and fertilizer and water with this amount of water, because you don't have these, you cut the corners. In the long run, you put in efforts, but you don't get as much as you want. The next point that we should look at is the production and how do we integrate it. Usually when we talk agriculture, the majority of us are looking just at the crop side, but the livestock side is there. There are others which we may not consider as crops or livestock. I'm talking about raising snails, mushrooms. All these contribute to food. Then we can't talk food if we don't talk about herbs that we use for medicinal purposes. All these are part of the agriculture. And most people may specialize in these areas so that when they make money, they can go get themselves the food. So these are another important area that we need to look at. Then the movement of what you have produced to where you want it to go. Along the way, you contaminate, you throw some away, some deteriorate, all these. Then they get to the storage point. There's also interventions that we need to do in these areas. Then when you are transforming it at the consumer level, be it home or an industry which is picking this, are we doing the right thing? What are the wastages there? What are the inefficiencies there? These are all areas that we should look at. And like you mentioned, that we look at the glass half full. We've come a long way, but we can do better if we look at these areas. Now, the word is insecurity. It's not just the abundance or availability of it, but does it contain what is nourishing? Has it got something that will make us ill? So these are the unwanted organisms or chemicals that are in this. And it's so obvious to us the way we use a lot of pesticides. You can see that right on the screen. To spray, what are we doing? At what levels are we using them? What types are you using it? Are they easily degradable? Or they stay in to give us the diseases we are seeing coming very early in our lives? When you've not attained a certain age, you start getting what we knew that old people get. So this quality assurance all along this way is something that we should be looking at as the capacities come in. Now, to look at capacities to be built, first is technology. With the changing demands in food patterns, consumption patterns, and also the environment, we should always be a step ahead.
Don't use yesterday's solutions.
Exactly.
Tomorrow's urgencies.
Agencies. And that's where organizations like us should be the vanguards. You think ahead. Try to get some of these that some people are using, which is good, to come and replace the old ones that we are using. And again, coming to the inefficiencies in the technology, some of our technologies and its development, then its transfer, a whole lot of inefficiencies. We waste a lot of time crossing and breeding when we could use modern technologies to remove what we don't need because you've questioned the tool to tell you, I want this and that. Of all these millions of genes that I have, which ones will solve that problem? Then it tells you this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You start testing them for that. So you don't waste a lot of time developing new technologies onto the market. I just gave an example of genetic materials, but it's the same with any other technology. You want to use machinery somewhere, an AI tool can tell you, for this area, a machine that has these capacities are what you should be doing. So your trial time comes down. Yeah. Regulations. We've got so much laws around policies, very beautiful ones. But for them to get legs to walk, you need the regulations. What suits the situations in which we are, so that there are no conflicts in these areas. That's another side that we need to build capacity on. Knowledge abounds, yet if it's not well managed, it's not well curated, it's not packaged in a way for the target person, the fellow stays ignorant. And ignorance is equal to poverty, because you don't know what to do. So that knowledge management is also another area that we should go. I'm happy that the president mentioned that they have already invested in digital technologies. That's where we are. Today, the keyboard is your tool for everything. Where you want to reach information, that's where it is.
Dr. Klose, you know, when you talked about policy, it immediately raised a question that I want to bring to the table. Hold on to the thought on policy because and regulation, but you've just introduced something that is also very, very crucial. And I want to bring what he's introduced right now to you, Ms. Rusiga. Dr. Klose has talked about food insecurity and dissected it with his PhD analysis, and I absolutely loved it. Bringing in the policy responsiveness is something that has triggered this question to you. Food insecurity in West Africa, you know, we're talking about historically it being at the forefront of regional agendas, international policy platforms. We could go on and on and on and on. Let me spotlight WFP-led initiatives that have helped communities. And you've helped communities, not just scope, you've helped communities begin to recover from food insecurity across West Africa. Let's talk about the connection with that policy responsiveness, that regulation, that made the WFP strategy work effectively the way Dr. Klose is asking us to look at.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you for having a World Food Program on this table and this very important discussion. Indeed, World Food Program has led quite a number of initiatives, but in this region, I would want to mention two specifically that have been impactful. The first one being the Integrated Resilience Program that is implemented since 2018. WFP has been working with government across the Sahel to address root causes of hunger. And through this Integrated Resilience Program, by rehabilitating over 300,000 hectares of degraded land, that's supporting over 4 million people in more than 3,400 villages. And a recent study actually confirmed that this program reduced humanitarian needs for nearly 400,000 people during the post-harvest period and nearly 1 million during the lean season in 2022 and 2023. The second one is WFP Sustainable Food System Strategy, which is a three-pronged strategy that is aimed at reducing dependency on humanitarian needs, but also imports of food by improving the capacity of government and private sector and the community on delivering. The strategy has, I mentioned that it has a three-pronged approach. The first one being the ecosystem rehabilitation and restoration that focuses on degraded land rehabilitation using watershed management approach. And this pillar on this strategy uses cash transfer and food assistance to enable communities to develop assets that support and strengthen food production. Our largest initiative actually in this region covers 5 countries of the Sahel region. This is Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and Mauritania. The bread basket strategy on its side is focusing on promoting and protecting surpluses producing areas through good food production practices, post-harvest management, value optimization, and improved linkages with institutional but also retail markets. We leverage on our local and regional food procurement in this area, and we're partnering with international financial institutions such as AFDB, World Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, to support adoption of high-yielding and climate-smart technology by leveraging the homegrown school feeding program and local food procurement. The last one, but one of the most important, is on strengthening institutional and delivery capacity. This focuses on building the capacity of government to develop and implement food crisis response plans, but also the private sector company to process the right nutritious food and develop the markets. Here in Ghana, the case of Yedent and Premium Food Limited are examples closest to us. But what I would like to add is that for the first time, in an effort to scale up this approach and the sustainability, WFP is launching its first dedicated impact fund to facilitate investment in small and medium-sized enterprises operating within food systems, particularly in frontier and fragile markets, to help reduce humanitarian needs. This may include different actors along the value chain, these processors, wholesalers, retailers, inputs, providers, and transporters. The fund will leverage WFP field presence to identify investable businesses and connect to market, provide tailored technical assistance, and mitigate risk to attract the private sector capital. This is an important fund. It will be external to WFP with a target size of 300 to 500 million US dollar, focusing on sub-Saharan Africa. The investment will range from 500,000 USD to 10 million per business and help ensure that capital flows to businesses that have the highest potential to strengthen food supply chains, create jobs, and improve food security.
Yeah. I have a smile on my face because every time I hear of an organization opening up a fund or launching a fund, I think of the small businesses,
Absolutely.
I think of the entrepreneurs, I think of the startups that under normal circumstances, though they have innovation at the forefront of their ambition, they cannot access the necessary money to activate this. So that's why I'm particularly, not that everything you said is not important. The moment you got to the fund, suddenly I became extremely excited because that's also another way of moving the talk, to action. So thank you so much. And how does one access this fund?
We'll launch an expression of interest, but those who would want to really try to get more information, they could always approach WFP here in Ghana.
Thank you so much.
We'll be happy to share the information.
Wow, thank you so much. And I'll remember, I made a note here so that we can share that information at the end of the President's Roundtable. Ms. Mula, I'm so interested in this concept of targeting measures, your IFAD using very important and targeted measures to promote food security and strengthen food resilience in rural areas across the region. What are some of these measures?
Thanks, Anita, and good morning to all of you. It's wonderful to be here on this panel. as you may or may not know, IFAD's been across the world for about 40 to 45 years, depending on which country you take. And our presence is extremely strong in the ECOWAS region, particularly because it is one of the most fragile regions in the world. I'd sort of like to break it down maybe in three separate areas. If you take that resilience is the baseline or the foundation upon which we build everything, and we build it with a mandate for smallholder farmers who are in the rural areas of every country. So if you break it up into, let's say, three sections for smallholders, and these are interventions that we have across countries in a combination or specific interventions through specific investments. We'll have working on production and productivity. We'll have strengthening market linkages for smallholders, as well as building their resilience and letting them access finance. So it's a whole package that will develop for smallholders so that they can start moving from subsistence farming into markets. Then we have a whole load of interventions, sometimes combined with the smallholders, sometimes separately for women and youth. Here in Ghana, we've actually had one of our longest standing investments in 3 phases, which is the Rural Enterprises Program, which most of you have probably heard of. And we're leaving this year with closing up the investment with established Enable Youth Factories, where young entrepreneurs are going to be running micro, small, medium enterprises with the help of government and with the help of private sector. So you're seeing that linkage happen for youth, because we all know youth don't want to be on the farm. And then for women, you have to make sure that things are inclusive, because without that, you're not going to be able to get women to the foray of entrepreneurship or into the foray of making business with food, right? And at the end, that's what we're looking for. Maybe the last thing I'll mention is private sector. Without private sector, I don't think anything can happen within food security or within food resilience. And we truly believe that private sector has to be a player on the table to ensure food resilience and food security across the region. So to that end, again, we do different combinations. We either bring them on and de-risk their investments with smallholders so that they pull the value chains, or we do public-private partnerships with them, private-public producer partnerships, so 4 Ps,
4 Ps,
including the smallholders. So these are different ways in which I'd say IFAD intervenes through government, because it's all a loan to government, and IFAD becomes a financier for any of these interventions with that mandate of rural development.
Dr. Donkor, you have a smile on your face. Now, one of the things that we're going to come back and talk about specifically, and as Dr. Donkor is smiling, as if he knows that I'm coming to him to ask him the biggest question of all, what a food secure Africa looks like. So you have to think of that answer, Dr. Donkor. But for now, unlocking food security in West Africa through agricultural transformation is a conversation we're having, proudly brought to you by ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, otherwise known as EBID. And this is officially the 2025 President's Roundtable, live on Metro TV, also live on channel 94.1, live on DSTV 277. I'm your moderator, Anita Erskine. We're going for a quick break. And when we come back, as Dr. Donkor was smiling, I'm going to get him to smile a little bit more into the future of West Africa by telling us what it looks like if we're all 100% food secure. We'll be right back. You are welcome back on this powerful and wonderful Tuesday morning here in Accra. My name is Anita Erskine, live on Metro TV, on DSTV 277 and radio channel 94.1. And the conversation is as crucial as your life and your next meal. Because today we're talking about unlocking food security in West Africa through agricultural transformation. And this powerful conversation is brought to you proudly by ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development. We call it the 2025 President's Roundtable. And we do have the president of EBID sitting right here at this table, along with our wonderful friends from, of course, multilateral, multinational, private sector. We are not just talking about the issues. Here, we talk about what is urgent and the action that should follow that urgency. Dr. Donkor, a broad and almost vague question, but as honest as it can come to you. What does a food secure West Africa look like to you?
Thank you, Anita. As I said in my introductory remarks, I look forward to a continent, a West African sub-region, where everyone has access to food. The population of West Africa, as we speak now, is over 456 million. That's the population of West Africa, over 456 million people. 156. So, and then you rightly indicated that about 50 million out of this population that I've just stated is food insecure or are food insecure. I'm looking forward to a time when these 50 million will come out of this category so that we'll have zero hunger in accordance with SDG 2. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals 2, the vision is that we should have zero hunger. And that is my vision. You don't just conceive a vision, you must have practical steps to be able to actualize solutions in order to address the challenge. We need to actually beef up our agriculture, activities. Right, throughout the value chain, from planting, from harvesting, from caring, transporting, marketing, right to the dining table. And it behoves regional institutions such as EBID to actually take the bull by the horn and invest heavily in these areas, as we have been doing. As I said, so far our investment is about over $500 million US, and there are plans to do more. If you look at SGC2 and SGD13, these have been highlighted in our strategic plan, 2025 strategic plan. In SG2, as I said, we have actually financed a number of projects, some in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana here, in Mali, in Burkina, trying to address this menace of food insecurity, which we think that is the core mandate of the bank. As you may be aware, the bank is to alleviate poverty from the region. And we can only alleviate poverty through investing in these growth posts, what we call growth posts. Agriculture is key. So that is number one. I'm also looking at a point where we have serious infrastructure, agriculture infrastructure, food infrastructure, so that our people will be motivated to do more. Roads, transport have become a big challenge for our farmers, as you are very much aware. They produce in abundance. Our roads are not good for them to transport this to the urban areas. In terms of the primary agricultural products which we produce, they have low income elasticity on the world market. What we have to do as a bank is to actually invest in this infrastructure so that we'll be able to transform some of these primary products into manufactured products which have high income elasticity on the world market. Until we do that, we will not be able to reach where we want to go. So as a bank, we can also work alone. We need collaboration from other international institutions like African Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, and all other financial institutions, regional and global, to actually come on board for us to actually pursue this. As I said in my introductory remarks, food insecurity is not only a West African issue, it's a global issue. It must be confronted globally. And so as a bank, we have really paid attention to this issue as enshrined in our strategic plan, and we are working day in and day out to ensure that this is achieved. So that is what the bank has so far, done in terms of these issues.
Dr. Donkor, I like that you underline you can't do it by yourself. but you can achieve it with your collaboration or with efforts of reaching out to like-minded organizations to whom together you can achieve. You said something about, the roads, and it's true. With all due respect, the average mind will not think immediately about how bad roads affect how very healthy, wonderful, juicy tomatoes can reach my table. So we have to really be intentional about our efforts, and you as EBID are being intentional about your investments. And others, others should follow suit. But completely, let me put you on the spot here. At what time did you realize, no, agriculture needs to be a major priority for us?
It has been a concern since inception. And that is why the bank pays a lot of attention to agriculture. If we look at our portfolio, as I speak with you now, we have invested about 4.5 billion across the various sectors of the economies of West Africa. Indeed, about 10 sectors. And agriculture alone takes about over 50% of our total investment in this sector that I've mentioned, which means that it is an area that we pay attention to. It is an area which is of great concern to the bank. But Anita, let me also raise this issue of waste, which I mentioned earlier. I think that is something which is barely, spoken of, because we think that it is not an issue. I gave the statistics that if you look at the 2024 Food Waste Index report, it pegs food waste at $1 trillion annually. This is a huge figure. And I believe that it is time that we took these important steps to make sure that we minimize waste. If you look at Food and Agriculture Organization, they estimate food waste around 20%. And the United Nations Environmental Program also estimate reports that about 19% of food is wasted at the retail level, at the food service, and at the household levels. So it is important for us to pay attention to waste, and by policy, of course. And that is one thing that the bank is also working with all the stakeholders to ensure that we have the right policies in place to be able to address this menace. So food security is at the core of the bank. And as I said earlier, it has been highlighted in our strategic plan, and we work day in, day out to ensure that this is nipped in the bud.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for bringing up policy, because I promised you, Dr. Clottey, that I wanted to come back and talk about policy. It's not a broken record, and it'll never be a broken record. Once you're able to understand that it's the policy that enables us to put the regulations into place for all of us to follow, from the most basic to the most complicated, then you know that we're all aligned, as one may say. So from where you sit, what are the most urgent policy shifts you believe, nation states, and private actors must adopt now to strengthen regional food resilience?
Good. When it comes to policies, I think we have more than enough.
We don't need to create any more.
What we need to create, what we need to do is improve the processes.
Right.
The processes within the member states. How do we mainstream the policy in an everyday life so that each fellow knows that my actions contribute to the shared vision of a group of people? Then how do we harmonize what we do by the member states? Infrastructure has already been mentioned, but I want to introduce another side where our policy should look at. Look at conflicts. This transhumance issue we have in West Africa creates a lot of problem, displaces people. The waste we have mentioned earlier is also in that. Someone invests his crop, animals come to destroy. Then the other gets annoyed and goes to poison all those animals. We've all lost. So these are, we may not see it as a policy within the agricultural sector, but it affects the agricultural sector if our security amongst the countries, we don't take care of that. And these are things we should take care of. Then, question of migration. People, conflicts in a place, they have to move and go to another place. Then the few, you don't have enough food there, the population has grown. then stress comes. See, so that's also another area we should be looking at. Then, the whole issue of trade amongst ourselves. First, the SPS issues. These are sanitary and phytosanitary measures which we put in so that movements of food items can be done in a safe way that you don't introduce anything bad, an organism that is not unwanted, from one place to go and threaten the food security in another place. These are all, we have laws, we have policies around this, but the process, how do we harmonize so that an inspection done at, let's say, Senegal, and goes through Mali, Burkina, and down to Abidjan or Accra or Lomé, it's done just once because everyone is doing the same thing as you move on the way coming. So these are the processes we should be looking at. They are administrative things, they are engineering things that we need to do. And you take Ghana, for instance, we want to develop our railway line. Are we planning with our neighbors that when the railway line gets there, we are using the same gauge, that we don't waste time at the border? They are not policies, they are the processes.
Yes.
And I think that's where we should concentrate on and see how we make these things work. How any action we take, who does it affect? How do we compensate that fellow? How do we alleviate that pressure that is coming onto that fellow? The accompanying incentives for people to yearn to follow a certain set of rules. See, these are the processes. So the policies, I think when you look, we have them. It's how we make it work, how we make people accept that I play a part in this and not say it's them.
I was just about to say, it's a you problem. And quite frankly, it has nothing to do with me. But ultimately, it will have something to do with me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is how we should look at the things. And how do we harmonize these governance systems amongst the member states? Then, in effect, moving beyond where we are to those we trade with who are just not our neighbors in the sub-region, because they also play a role in this. And there are also the questions of trade barriers, which we impose in one way to the other. Tariffs we know, but there are other ones that we have, which makes the movement of the goods and people around not flow freely. And they are all policy issues. They are there. We have ECOWAS, we're talking about ECOWAS. Since 1975, we had agreed that free movement of goods and services. Is it really there? See, what makes it work? So that you know that, that's my neighbor from the other village. He's come, I need to do this and that, because he has to send this to these ones. It is the thing that we need. The language barriers, how do we break it? So when a pesticide in Ghana, everything is written in English. If it crosses the border to the other side, will they understand and use it well? Because they are used to speaking French, so they can read French. The other way around from this end. We need to look at all these and use things in the right way.
Yeah.
So to me, these are the things we should be making sure that we communicate freely, not just by the roads and the rails, but language, the ways we do
all
things.
trickles down.
Yes, the forms we use when we are feeling things to move around. There's a harmony in these things. Once we can do that, I believe that will solve some of these problems. Because let's face it, it's not everything that can be produced in abundance at one location in our sub-region.
No.
Others have comparative advantage in doing these things. So you allow them to do what they can do, you do yours, then we move them and share. So that's, to me, what we should be looking at.
Wow. Ms. Mula, Dr. Clottey has outlined his side: trade, conflict, migration, all the way down to language. I would like you to bring in climate smart responses. I mean, climate change, again, you said something very crucial. It's not a you problem, it's an us problem. And we often live every day not really stopping and thinking, what impact does climate change have on me? And we're talking about the smallholder farmers, the people who sometimes I say they don't really have a voice, right? So it is the IFADs of the world that stand up for these people. So let's talk about how IFAD has been a strong advocate for climate smart agriculture, and perhaps also what innovative financing mechanisms IFAD has been able to put in place to support the smallholder farmers.
Thanks, Anita. I think we all know that climate change is here. It's real. And IFAD believes it affects mostly our smallholder farmers because these are the ones that are producing food for you and me and for all of us. So IFAD is really an enabler of finance, specifically climate funds or green funds, as Mr. President likes to say. And there are several interventions across the ECOWAS region which have happened with these green funds, whether it is improved inputs which are drought tolerant, or whether it's solar panels for boreholes, or solar powered irrigation, or biogas digesters which help with renewable energies, you see? Specific to Ghana, I can give you an example where we had a financing of a $10 million grant to the government of Ghana through the Adaptation for Smallholder Agriculture Program, whereby we did land management as well as agroforestry and improved 12,000 smallholder farmer lives by increasing their production by 40% in staple crops, just staple crops, which enhance food security, right? So without a doubt, I think climate smart agriculture has to include innovative climate financing. Maybe I'll just leave you with a new product that we've launched through one of our investments, which is a blended finance facility. Because without access to finance, there's absolutely no way that anyone's going to be able to do anything. So the blended finance facility, I'd like to say, reduces market rate interest temporarily so that we can finance along the value chain. And maybe the last thing I'd say is, again, you need private sector on board with you, because without private sector, we're not going to be able to achieve any of this. So innovative financing, absolutely a necessity, whether it's to bring women on board, whether it's to ensure that you make smallholders resilient for future climate shocks, and whether we ensure that the food we get has sustained those climate changes that are going to happen. So all of those things need innovative financing.
Just shake the table just a little bit. When it comes to our smallholder farmers, how are we able to translate what is happening to them? How are we able to get them aligned with the policies that we have enough of? How are we able to get them to be part of the regulation? How are we able to, bottom line, involve them in our conversation? Can you give me an idea of IFAD's impact, if you may call it that way, in that regard?
This is possibly where IFAD has had the most impact, which is you take smallholder farmers, and you and I can't go and speak to every smallholder farmer who's got an acre of land or 2 hectares of land. You've got to get them in a group and sort of explain the process to them, and that's part of the capacity building that Doc mentioned. And it is that brings them into a group that then allows them to be a much more valued player, in a sense, with much more of a competitive advantage to accessing markets, which then will bring in that policy and the regulation and all the other good stuff that will pull them. And then subsequently or ultimately to ensure that the profits dwindle down to that basic level. And when a smallholder sees profits, there's nothing that can be more motivating than knowing you can make money from what you grow over a sustainable manner for your family and for your future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I was asking because often I feel that sometimes when we're having the big conversations, we forget the small people, so to speak. So this is very crucial that you highlight IFAD's success with that. And thank you so much. Mr. Siga, extreme weather events are growing in frequency. How is WFP integrating climate data and early warning systems to respond more effectively to climate shocks in your mission to build resilience, perhaps also to adapt to climate change and ultimately to improve food systems across West Africa?
Thank you, Anita. We do it in many ways, from a macro level to the community level. WFP integrates risk and climate information more and more in its programs. This year mark 10 years of WFP implementing anticipatory action program. This means that we react ahead of the events. Today, WFP Anticipatory Action Program is implemented in 44 countries and cover 6.2 million people ahead of forecasted droughts, floods, and cyclones. With our partner, we are committed to protecting 1 billion people by end of 2025 from disaster shocks. These include acting ahead of the events that can be forecasted and to deliver more efficient and cost-effective and forward-looking humanitarian assistance. It has its foundation, of course, in the setup of early warning systems to better prepare for the climate extreme when they take place and prearrange the fund to avert or mitigate the impact of the imminent extreme weather events. This approach not only is critical to unlock more efficient and forward-looking humanitarian assistance, but it can save lives, uphold dignity of people, and provide meaningful financial investment opportunities. We've seen this lately in Niger, in Chad, where communities are reached with climate services messages ahead of weather disasters, but also payouts are done from micro-insurance. WFP also implement a climate risk insurance scheme that improves the African government's management of climate risk. This is the Africa Risk Capacity replica for implementation of an early response plan. Lately, we got Mauritania, Mali, and Burkina Faso having a payout after the 2023 drought. This year, more than half of the insurance coverage of WFP are provided in West and Central Africa. We also collaborating with IFAD to implement the African Integrated Climate Risk Management Program, which is a project in 7 Sahelian countries that is promoting micro-insurance by improving and expanding opportunities for smallholder farmers. You've been talking about smallholder farmers being forgotten. These are opportunities that we do to make sure that they adopt the right practices that could unlock the potential they present.
Thank you so much. And you brought up something crucial that we'll bring into the next part of our questioning. But I have a list of questions here, but I've already received questions from many of you on Facebook and Twitter. I have a comment here. Anita, please read this, especially from Mr. President, from Samuel Bonsu. And Samuel Bonsu said, Mr. President, my mother raised me and my 6 siblings through her very small tomato selling business. I have to say today, listening to you, it's made me smile and almost made me teary, because for the first time, somebody is considering not only the bigger picture, but the smaller ones, such as my mother, who is a tomato seller at Kaswa. Just to say, it may seem you are impacting nations, but also I want you to understand that your hard work and dedication is changing the life of people like me. Yours truly, Samuel Bonsu. Mr. President, so you see, sometimes you're looking at the big picture, but people like Samuel's lives are being changed with your efforts from EBID. All right, so we're going for a quick break, and when we come back, I'll I'll have our panelists answer as many questions as possible before we wrap up. I'll put my questions on hold, and then, of course, we'll answer your questions. Yeah, and if you have any more questions coming in that we cannot answer, I'll work with the EBID team to find a way to interact. Dr. Donkor, please go ahead,
So
please.
you mentioned the issue of climate. And
Yes.
I want to just at least say something a little about that.
Please go ahead.
So it is another issue which has really engaged the attention of the bank. Climate is SDG 13. Climate action is one of the SDGs. And if you look at our system, our farming system, realize that, as I said initially, we have less than 5% of our farms irrigated. And that's not good enough. Because you see, irrigation systems are a form of climate change adaptation and of course coping mechanism. Because if you have about, climate change through maybe food waste reduction would also help not only to avoid what we call greenhouse gases, but also ensure the efficient use of the land. And that will also make food security or food abundance. So it is important that climate change must be taken seriously if we want to achieve food security. It's an area that we normally ignore, but I just want to throw this.
Dr. Donkor, thank you so much. And I've heard people often make a mistake of thinking climate change is not an issue that affects Africa. People have thought, well, if you live in a cold country and it starts to get hot, then that's your problem because it's always been hot on the continent of Africa. And I've tried to explain it's not a 1+1 issue. Climate change is actually affecting all of us. We'll be back after the break. This is the EBID President's Roundtable, the 2025 edition. And I wish we had more time, but we'll be back to answer your questions. Welcome back. And the 2025 President's Roundtable is proudly brought to you by ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, also known as EBID, or popularly known as EBID. We've had in our midst Dr. George Ajekum Nana Donkor, President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of EBID. We've also had Dr. Victor Atukwe Clottey, Regional Director, West Africa, CAB International, also known as CABI. Also here is Ms. Aurora Rusiga, Representative and Country Director, World Food Programme, WFP Ghana. And last, definitely not the least, Ms. Lakshmi Mula, Country Director, International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD Ghana. And it's been a wonderful 60-something minutes of conversation, but my heart is happy because I've received so many questions from social media. I can only ask 2 of them, but I promise we'll find a way to answer the rest for you. So jumping straight into our first question, and any of my panelists says, Madams, you are more than welcome to answer them. First question is, as a sub-region, climate change and environmental degradation are one of the major challenges. How do we overcome this since we want to address food security through agricultural transformation? Shall I pick an answer?
Right, so
Dr. Donkor.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
So rightly, you see that food security is key, and for that reason, environmental degradation and it's something that must be actually dealt with if you want to achieve a goal of ensuring adequate food for all of us. And so it boils down to policy. I think that it is important for our nations to enact the right policies and ensure enforcement. You know, we have all the policies in place already. The enforcement of these policies is what is left. And so for us to actually achieve food security, I think our governments and our nations should actually take a very serious look at that, make sure that the law works, and then we ensure that some of these activities are stopped as quickly as possible. I think Ghana, we have some of these challenges here. And so, as I said, the laws are there. The laws are there. And not only Ghana, where I work across all the 15 countries of ECOWAS, the laws are there. All that we need is to ensure strict compliance with these rules and regulations, so that people may know the danger, the seriousness of environmental degradation, and of course, the need for us to maintain a very, very important climate environment. Climate adaptation, climate environment, as enshrined in SDG 13, as I said earlier, is very key because it has the potential of wiping away human race from the surface of the earth. And I believe that it is high time we took note of this important step and then ensure that we actually address it.
That's quite scary. It has the potential to wipe out the entire human race. Wow. Mr. President, I said glass half full. Now you're scaring us. Don't mind me. Yes, Ms. Rusiga, please.
Yes, on the climate change, I would want to add, beyond the policy, we need to make sure the communities are supported so that we, get the right climate services as well up to the community level. The behavior change is another issue. Sometimes the environment is destroyed by our own doing. Those are some of the issues I think that we really need to look at seriously. Access to information is one of the game changer that I think could be worked on to try to information.
Very good point.
And climate services.
Next question is, what strategies can be implemented to reduce post-harvest losses and improve food storage and distribution systems across the region? Dr. Clottey, I feel like that's a question that you can answer.
Yeah, and I think we've mentioned some already as we went along. The president talked a lot about the wastage, talked about the infrastructure. These are things that if we place accent on, we can solve some of these problems. And In answering the previous question, I mean, we threw all the blame on others, whilst everyone is contributing to this wastage, to the climate issue we talked about earlier. And not until every individual does the right thing, together we are all contributing towards those areas. And for both questions, we should also look at technology. We talk about access to information, we should also talk access to technology.
Yeah.
Because to store things, you need certain technologies. And some technologies have been around for so long, but it's not a household technology. Something like storing something in vacuum. A small vacuum pump can be created, and at home you can suck the air out and keep it in a storage bin where there is not air for any organism there to breathe and break it down. Drying. I mean, simple things that will make you dry what you have and store it in another sense. But as I said, we also have to change. We need to adapt to our tastes. There's some things we like. As the world changes, you need to change. Because if you are so busy, then you have to eat things that would not, breaks the drudgery. And the private sector comes in to give us something that has been semi-processed, so it takes you less time to do that. All these encompasses into the storage question that have been asked. Technology is what will take us forward.
Beautifully answered. Thank you very much, Dr. Clotte. Ms. Mula, this is a question for you. Anita, I would like to say that I like what the IFAD lady, her name is Ms. Mula, what she said. However, there are so many institutions that are not comfortable lending money to smallholder farmers. Please, can you help get her to explain what has her institution put into place to support smallholder farmers and rural cooperatives in order for them to access financing without the risk or without the perception of high risk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's what she's trying to say.
I think it's again this two-pronged approach. We work with ensuring that we have the right products from the smallholder level to the corporate level to the cooperative level to the medium, let's say small medium scale enterprises. And on the other side is to sensitize and educate the participatory rural financial institutions to understand that this cannot be a risky lending proposition because this is food for everybody for the future. So it's matching those two sort of parties within a transaction. So at the moment, like I mentioned, we have a blended finance facility within one of our investments, which actually is lending to farmer groups. So get yourself into a group is what I would say, and then contact the offices of IFAD, which are based out of Sunyani, and you should be able to see what they can do for you with the participating financial institution. One of our biggest partners in this is also ARB Apex Bank, which IFAD had a huge role in setting up, along with other partners here on the table. And that is the bank that also regulates the participatory financial institution. So it has to happen through a formal medium, and that is a financial institution. We also do matching grants in several of our projects. Right now, at this point in Ghana, we're not doing it. We are doing it in other countries. So to answer your smallholder farmers question.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for our social media questions. A few more, but we'll figure out how to answer those questions because we have only about 5 minutes to go. And in the 5 minutes, I'm very eager, Dr. George Ejikum Donkor, for you to talk about how EBID is leveraging its influence. EBID is hugely influential. And you know, we talked about capital. Let's put capital aside for a minute. Let's talk about influence when it comes to shaping policy environments, when it comes to building trust with governments, when it comes to encouraging bold long-term commitments to agricultural transformation in West Africa. How is EBID leveraging its influence in that regard?
So thank you, Anita. I think that you made mention of the capita. It's true, but I just want to say something about that.
Go ahead, please.
As part of my presentation. We, as I said, we have invested over $500 million US across all the member countries, especially in agriculture. And in our loan documentations, there are rules and there are covenants that borrowers must comply with. We have our periodic supervision, where we visit these sites to ensure that our borrowers comply strictly with the rules and the regulations and the provisions in the loan agreement. It's one of the methods that we use to actually shape direction. It may not be a national policy, but it is an agreement between us and the borrowers. That is number one. Number two, EBID also plays advocacy role a lot in these areas, in shaping policy. We have what is called our media webinar. We organize webinars twice a year, and in this program, we try to highlight, we try to also influence policy direction by actually educating and informing our member countries and all stakeholders the need for us to have very, very, robust policies to guide food security issues. Number two, we also organize what we call the ECOWAS Investment Forum. I'm sure next year we're going to invite you to come to Lomé on this. We also try to actually address some of these issues. And we try to also invite high-profile, people to these programs, people who are very influential in terms of government policy and other things. And they also come, and that is another forum that we also make our views known on some of these things so that it will shape policy direction. Number three, what I'm doing today, that is a President Roundtable, is another opportunity. As we speak out, as we discuss these things, governments, organizations, NGOs, and all stakeholders are listening. And it's another means of actually influencing policy direction. Apart from that, we are also the manager. ECOWAS Bank is the manager of what we call Regional Fund for Agriculture and Food. This is a fund set by the ECOWAS member countries to implement programs and projects related to food security interventions. And we are the manager. So we have a framework agreement that governs the management of this initiative. And we are very, very key in implementing this. And for that reason, it's another means of EBID actually coming out with its own views regarding how to address this issue of food security and the policy that is associated with it. Another point is that we have also signed a legal documentation with Islamic Organization for Food Security. I don't know whether you have heard about that. Yes. Islamic Organization for Food Security. This is an organization that implements domain in the area of sustainable agriculture, rural development, food reserves and those things. And we're also a partner of this initiative, of this organization. So these are the ways that we actually make sure that we influence policy direction as a bank in our own small way. And I can tell you that it has really worked, for us. We have actually influenced a number of issues in all the member countries where we work because of some of these things that I've mentioned.
And you're speaking the language of diversity and versatility. Exactly. To me. If you don't find a diverse way of channeling this conversation and insisting on, kind of like a united front in targeting these issues, we won't get there, so to speak. Thank you so much, Dr. Donkor. And with the last few minutes remaining, I'm going to go around the table. And we have 45 seconds. I will time each and every one of you 45 seconds to answer this very last question. Dr. Clote, your question is, for all of you, what is one major shift you believe that will unlock food security in West Africa over the next 5 years?
I'll go for a harmonized system of the way we do things. We need to create tools and systems that will safeguard trade and investment, whilst across sectors, the countries, whatever tools we are using are interoperable. Once we have them harmonized, I think we can access a lot of knowledge, technology, which will make us improve what we're doing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clote. And to you, Ms. Aurora Rusiga, same question.
Make the youth and women understand the value of the land, most of the time undeveloped, that they inherited, that is huge potential to unlock and the potential and take them out of poverty. Because they may not know that they are sitting on huge value.
Do this, and by 2030, we'll be fine. Same question to you, Ms. Muller.
I started with 4 Ps. Let me end with 3 Ps. I think it has to be multiple things. And I would say we believe in smallholders, so people. We believe in the planet, so it has to be ensuring that we adapt and build the resilience of these people. And lastly, profits. That's private sector, and profit has to flow down to the smallholder farmer. So IFAD truly believes in those 3 as shifting the scale on food security.
Dr. Donkor, I'm going to change your question just a little bit. What makes you most proud with the progress that EBID has made as far as highlighting food security in West Africa? What's your proudest moment, Dr. Donkor?
Yes, because we think that we have taken a number of people out of poverty, and therefore we fulfill our mandate. Let me say that regardless of all the causes of food insecurity, what is not lost on us is the enormity of the problem, the risk it poses, of course, and of course the need to actually address it as expeditiously as possible. And that is what the bank has lived up to today. Investing more than $500 million in food or in agriculture is not an easy thing. And we are not so much concerned about the profit that we make, but the developmental agenda and the life that we impart. And if you look at the statistics, the data, you see that the bank has done a lot, especially in the, less, or maybe the deprived nations.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have done a lot, and I think that we will share the data with you later on. This may not be appropriate time, but we have done a lot in actually taking people out of poverty, and that's what we are proud of. We are proud of as a bank, and we continue to do that to save humanity.
You know, Dr. Donkor, taking anybody out of poverty is also pushing them towards prosperity. That's how I see it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, of course, unlocking food security in West Africa through agricultural transformation is a conversation that EBID, ECOWAS Bank for Investment Development, has propagated this afternoon, this morning into this afternoon. Wherever you may be watching us, whether you are watching us within the 15 member states of ECOWAS or across the continent, it is imperative that you underline one thing that was mentioned one way or another. Food security is not somebody else's problem. So from the most complicated to the simplest, you are involved, and it's a priority for you. Of course, if you're hearing EBID for the first time, it's the regional development financial institution owned by the 15 member states of the ECOWAS. And once you are in this region, you are part of our solution. My name is Anita Erskine. Until we come your way, God willing, with 2026 President's Roundtable, I want to say a big thank you to the EBID team. In the studio somewhere, I can see Angelo Dazi. He's standing there, and then he's going to be very upset that I mentioned his name live. He probably didn't tell you he was in Ghana. He's in Ghana. Anita, Anita, thank you so much. Natalie, thank you so much. And to the Metro TV technical crew for making sure that this has beamed live and this has come to you in your homes, your offices. We say a big thank you. And most importantly, a big thank you to you, EBID, for thinking and feeling, and Mr. President, making this conversation something that is not only what we hear, but something that we see and something that we can act on right now. My name is Anita Erskine. God bless you. God bless Ghana. Goodbye.